Hello. Many Magic the Gathering players ask the question, are Commander Precons getting too complicated? Well, let's imagine for a moment that you're playing with the Tarkir Dragonstorm Precons with your friends. You're playing with these decks right out of the box with 0 upgrades or changes. You're piloting the Mardu Surge Precon. You have your commander, Zurgo Stormrender, in play equipped with the Blade of Selves. You move to combat and attack the Sultai player with your commander, triggering Myriad. You make 2 copies of Zurgo, each attacking one of the Abzan and Temur players. Immediately, you sacrifice 2 of your Zurgos to the Legend rule. You choose to keep your real Zurgo, the one equipped with the blade. Your 2 token Zurgos die, putting some number of Zurgo abilities on the stack. Whenever a creature token leaves the battlefield, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, each opponent loses 1 life. So, question, how many triggers go on the stack? When they resolve, do you draw that many cards, or do your opponents lose life? If you're a brand new player, the answer to that might not be obvious. Heck, even if you're an experienced player who finds themselves in this situation, the question might give you pause. The right answer is that you do draw cards, since the tokens that die immediately to the Legend rule did enter already attacking. And as for how many cards you draw, well, let's work that out. The key to knowing the answer to this question lies in the 2 sub-questions. First, do the token Zurgos that have died see each other die? And, even less intuitively, do they see themselves die? The answer to both questions is yes. The rule's justification for this lies in the Magic rulings on the process of leaving the battlefield or dying. Namely, the process of dying starts on the battlefield and ends in the graveyard. Permanents with death triggers, or leaving the battlefield triggers, always see themselves leave the battlefield, and therefore trigger when it happens. It's the reason a card like Doomed Traveler is able to exist, and the reason why Blood Artist triggers a billion times when a player casts a board wipe with it in play. Because all 3 Zurgos see the 2 token Zurgos leave the battlefield, each Zurgo triggers twice, putting 6 Zurgo triggers on the stack and drawing the Mardu Zurgo player 6 cards. 6 cards for Mardu Zurgo. You go, Mardu Zurgo. But while the logic here is sound, and maybe a player with a strong understanding of the rules would be able to intuit the interaction between Zurgo and Blade of Selves, is the ruling here really something that you'd expect a new player to be able to deduce? If not, then why is the interaction included in a Commander Precon, a product that is ostensibly designed with new players in mind? By the way, this interaction really did come up in an office game our staff was playing back when Tarkir first came out, which, while that may seem like ages ago, was really just 12 weeks ago. But product release schedules is another video, and back on track. We were all playing and testing out the Tarkir Precons, and we were shocked at how complex the play patterns for those decks were. The Blade of Selves plus Zurgo interaction in particular caused the entire table to scratch their heads and call a judge. Our shuffle up and play on set judge, he explained the ruling, the Zurgo player drew their cards, and we all started talking about what the heck an interaction this complex was even doing in a product for new players. We asked that question again when the Final Fantasy Commander Precons hit. And as we looked at card after growingly complex card for Final Fantasy, we really did wonder about the new player experience and whether or not Commander Precons have gotten too complex. It's a question that doesn't have a straightforward answer. On the one hand, I really love it when a Commander Precon has an exciting or challenging interaction or two. But I'm an established player. I've been playing Magic since before nearly many of you were born, and the rest of the TCC team are no slouches either. So if we got stumped with an interaction playing a non-upgraded Precon, what happens to new players? I can easily imagine a new Magic player picking up or being handed the Mardu Precon and playing one of their first games of Magic with it, only to be so overwhelmed by all the triggers and tokens and cards to keep track of that they decide this great game is not for them. But it didn't used to be like this. Commander Precons provided for a very long time very simple game experiences relative to the rest of Magic. So why has that changed? Are Precons getting too complex, or is the evolution of these products a positive trend for Commander players? Just who are Commander Precons for nowadays anyway? All those questions and more are what's in store, so let's take a... what you doing there, bud? I'm just about to buy a rare Magic the Gathering card from some shady site I found on the World Wide Web, so I need to protect my credit card. Why don't you just use privacy? Sponsor of this video. Oh, I love privacy. That's why I go by The Professor, so no one knows that my real name is Brian Lewis, and that I was born in 1979 in London. With privacy, you can generate unique virtual card numbers for each website or purchase, protecting your real credit card information from websites you don't trust and from data breaches. You can use privacy for any purchase, whether it be for recurring charges on sites like Netflix, DoorDash, or Amazon, where you want to set a monthly limit on the card, or for one-off purchases on sites you don't plan to go back to. That way you don't get hit with some surprise payments, and even if that particular seller is trustworthy, you never know when a website you bought something from might get hit with a data breach and lose your information. Oh, I could set up a privacy card that I could use for only Magic the Gathering product that I buy from a site like Card Kingdom. That's right, you could! And if you want to buy that rare Magic the Gathering card you mentioned, you can set up a single-use card that automatically closes after you make your purchase. Hey, how much does this cost? I'm about to have a lot less money once I buy this rare Magic the Gathering card. Well, good news! They've got a plan that's 100% free for purchase in the US. Actually, better than free. If you sign up using our link, privacy.com/TolarianCC, you get $5 for free. Wow, well, I'm sold. I won't need that bubble wrap anymore. That's great! And you can go to privacy.com/TolarianCC to get your $5 sign-up bonus today. That's a free $5 to apply to your first purchase using Privacy. Privacy is a free plan with no fees for domestic purchases. I cannot stress this enough. The plan is free. Thank you, Privacy, for sponsoring this video. Once upon a time, Commander Precons were relatively simple. I mean, Magic the Gathering is a complicated game at a baseline, but the interactions included in your typical Commander Precon were all very grokkable, as the kids say. They had their synergies, of course, and all manner of different mechanics, some of which may have seemed pretty complicated at the time. Eminence, for instance, when it was previewed, was considered a complicated mechanic. What do you mean the commander has an ability when it's not even in play? How is that possible? But look at the cards in the Mardu Eminence Precon compared to Tarkir Dragonstorm's Mardu Surge Precon. Sure, some of these Eminence Precon cards have a lot of text, and maybe you need to read one or two of them a couple times to totally understand what's going on, but you also have so many simple cards. Vampire Nighthawk, Sangromancer, Anowin the Ruin Sage. And that list just goes on. The Precon also includes cards like Ambition's Cost, Door of Destinies, and Sanguine Bond. The most complex cards in the Precon are things like Teferi's Protection, New Blood, and Skeletal Vampire. Compare that to the Mardu Surge Precon. Sure, any given one of these cards might fit in an older Precon at the upper end of the deck's complexity spectrum, but the sheer number of them with different modes that make different tokens, that keep track of what entered this turn or died this turn, tokens that stay in play and tokens that get sacrificed end of combat, permanent +1/+1 counters and temporary +1/+1 buffs, abilities that trigger once per turn and abilities that don't, and exiling cards you can cast from your opponent's libraries, and good God, it's just so much, and this is all within one Precon deck. And that's not even mentioning the two commanders. Commanders with lengthy abilities emblematic of the complexity of the entire deck. How is a new player supposed to keep track of all of this and think about all of the stuff going on over on their opponent's side of the field, all three of their opponent's sides of the field? If I was going to recommend one of the Tarkir Precons to a new player, someone who, honest to God, is new to Magic the Gathering, I'm not even sure which one of these I'd feel confident suggesting. Certainly not Sultai with all of its dredge shenanigans. I mean, that Precon has a Dothai Voidwalker in it, for crying out loud. Would I point them to the Abzan Precon, which switches up which side of a creature's stat line deals the damage right out of the gate? Probably not. I guess I might suggest the Temur Dragons Precon, as putting big monsters into play is exciting and easy to grok. But even Temur Roar has complicated cards like Leyline Tyrant, Reflections of Litgara, and Breaching Dragonstorm. Maybe the Jeskai Precon would be a good fit, but that one has Tempest Technique and Narset's Reversal. And God, Baral and Kari Zev. Imagine it's your third ever game of Magic the Gathering, and you're reading Baral and Kari Zev for the first time. And this is us talking about Tarkir Precons, a basic in-universe set. What about universes beyond sets like Final Fantasy, which are meant to be some of the biggest gateways into the game for brand new players? The complexity creep on the cards included in the Final Fantasy Precons is absolutely off the charts. Just imagine being brand new to Magic the Gathering and being presented with cards like this. I won't even get into the other universes beyond Precons like Fallout, which introduced rad counters as the premise of an entire Precon deck. And don't get me started on the complexity of those Doctor Who Precons. Flavorful though they may be, some of these Doctor Who cards are complex enough to make an experienced Magic the Gathering player's head spin. Now, granted, this isn't true of every single Precon these days. Aetherdrift's Esper Zombies Precon, for instance, is reminiscent of the older, simpler days of Precon design. The Golgari Delirium Precon from Duskmourn was pretty straightforward, as was the Rakdos Punisher deck. But the Simic Manifest Dread and Esper Miracles Precons created some crazy board states. Most of the Bloomborough Precons, too, were pretty ridiculous. I think it's hard to claim that most of the Precons we see these days really are designed to create positive new player experiences. But is that a problem? That's a tough question, because the broader Commander player base loves when new Precons come out. Once you have a handle on the fundamentals of Magic, and of Commander specifically, it's only natural to want a deck with more texture to sink your teeth into. I know that's something I look for. So all that backs the question then, who are these Precons for? Is the typical standard set Precon still intended for new players, or are the majority of Precons these days designed with enfranchised Commander players in mind? Obviously, the ideal outcome is to try and do both, provide new players with an introductory experience and give experienced players an exciting and unique experience, but is it still possible to do both? It once was, but as Magic continues to grow its rapidly expanding player base and ramp up its releases, it may be more and more difficult, if not impossible, to do so. Over the past 12 years of Tolarian Community College, I have reviewed every single Commander Precon deck. Every single one except the very first 5 that were ever made. I missed those. But from the second year of Commander Precons forward, I reviewed them. And Commander Precons have overwhelmingly earned high grades from me. Honestly, it's a bit of a shock when a Precon gets a B or a C grade. And while I have awarded every grade there is, from fail to D to C, it really is a rarity and a bit of a shock when a Precon gets anything below a B from me. That's because they've always been a great product. You might say they're my favorite product outside of draft booster packs. And the reason for this is simple. For all the faults of what is often a subpar mana base, or lack of reprints, or other fine detail quibbles, Commander Precon deck has remained a product that's for everyone. Honestly, it's a winning formula. Create a Commander Precon with a handful of new card designs, including an interesting and engaging commander. Reprint some in-demand cards, create new art or special premium foils, and you have a product that can pretty much be for everyone. Established players will be drawn to the new card designs, either for their existing Commander decks or possibly to build brand new ones around. And new players can still sit down and play with that Commander deck right out of the box, whether it's against each other or even against their friends who already play Commander. I mean, holy moly, the fact that you can do that with just about any one of these Commander Precons is incredible. Sure, you probably won't win with a Commander Precon up against your friends' established decks, but the nature of Commander means you'll still get to play a full game, and it also means you maybe have a shot to do some cool stuff and at least put up some pressure on a few of your opponents throughout that game. Honestly, I've legit played multiple games of Commander where the person on the Precon won against the rest of the pod with their established decks. It does happen. And the fact that all of this can happen for $29.99, oh, sorry, they raised their prices, $34.99 and then up to $39.99, and now it's $44.99, but still, it's a pretty solid product with interest to a wide swath of players, new and experienced. $100 for a Commander Precon is nonsense, though. That's just, don't pay that. Don't buy that! But it is important to keep in mind that this system worked well when Commander Precons were a product that was released just once per year, and not, as is now the case, 24 to 25 Commander decks per year. This frequent release affects things a lot. First off, the player base that most consistently buys each new Precon when it comes out are much more established players. New players aren't placing a pre-order for the newest batch of Precons on announcement day. They're new. New players are going to wander into a store as they get into the game, pick it up off the shelf, and then maybe eventually buy a copy, whatever that copy happens to be. It might even be an old one that's been up there for a while. That means that the type of players you need to excite for each new nearly monthly release are the most enfranchised of players, the ones who are deep in the trenches of all of this. So as time goes on, this results in a series of escalations in new card design that results in a new player product that's unintentionally hostile to the new player experience. Granted, there are some Precons that have pushed back against this trend. In 2022, Wizards of the Coast released Commander starter decks, and these were meant to be Commander Precons that were explicitly targeted at new players. There were 5 decks in total, one for each allied color pair, and each was built around a basic theme. These were cheaper and more affordable than the average Commander Precon, and they consisted entirely of reprinted cards. Nothing too valuable or chase, just overall well-constructed and genuinely strong decks, but crucially, these decks were exceptionally simple. The Azurius Flyers Precon was all about building up a board full of flying creatures. The Dimir Zombies Precon combined graveyard and zombie synergies in ways that were both fun and intuitive to new players. The Rakdos Combat Precon got into the trenches, teaching new players the fundamentals of attacking and blocking. The Gruul Dragons Precon was actually a lot like the Tarkir Temur Precon, but even more streamlined towards the singular goal of put big dragon into play. And the Selesnya Tokens deck, while it sure did make a lot of tokens, did so without adding weird stipulations about sacrificing them at different times. It just built out a wide board and then made that board bigger. Part of the problem is that while products such as Commander Precons are ideally made for everyone, they are really made for established and experienced players. Or at the very least, they are made to get those experienced Magic players interested in them. And one of the best, if only ways to generate excitement from an experienced player is with more and more complex cards. If you show a Commander Precon to an established Commander player, and that Precon has 0 new cards that interest that player, either to build new decks around or to put in their existing decks, then that player will declare the Precon of 0 interest to them. If the majority of Commander players have this reaction, the product will probably be a failure because, again, if there's no new cards in the Precon that interest you, well then why buy it? Unfortunately, this causes Wizards of the Coast to push for more powerful and more complex card designs. You need to make new cards that are strict upgrades to existing cards. That way, Commander players will need to buy the new deck in order to upgrade their existing decks. In order to achieve this, cards need to be more. Cards need to do more. Cards need to offer more, and that means cards need to become more and more complex, to the point that they have more and more words on them, even pushing out flavor text from most of them. When every single Magic the Gathering set has 2 to 4 Commander Precons released with it, and when those Magic sets come out every month or every other month, not to mention extra sets and premium sets, which themselves have extra Commander Precons and premium Commander Precons. And just the overwhelming deluge of new products and new releases, well, power and complexity creep gets put into overdrive. And it all has to sell. Profits need to double, and then they need to double again. It is considered a failure if we earn only a little bit more this year than last. So products need to sell, and that means the cards in them are simply going to have to become more and more and more complex. As with any trend, the concern is not just about where we are now, but also about where we are headed. If Precons today are this much more complicated than Precons from 10 years ago, then how much more complicated will Precons in 10 years' time be? Or never mind 10 years' time, what about just a few more years' time? Where is all of this complexity creep taking us? Now, I've talked about complexity creep before as it pertains to card design, and it is my belief that this is a trend that is not just bad for the player experience, but it's also a trend that's inherently unsustainable. At a certain point, you can only fit so much text on a Magic card, and so complexity creep is going to hit a wall, at least until they make those 3-sided cards, which, trust me, those are coming eventually. But of course, those are just my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. Do you think Commander Precons are getting more and more complex? But more importantly, if you do you think this is a problem? And if you do think it's a problem, what are the solutions and how likely are they to occur? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you want to hear more talk about complicated Magic cards, I have many videos on the subject, including this list of some of the most complicated Magic cards ever made and what I feel is the most complicated Commander deck that you could ever make. Check out that video here by clicking the I or linked in this video's description. And remember, even though Magic Precons are getting more and more complicated, when you do decide to pick one up, or maybe just some card sleeves and other accessories, when it is possible, when it is reasonable to do so, try and spend that money where you spend time playing this great, if not complicated game, and that is at your local game store. You're supporting your Magic community when you do.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Today, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players!
My name's Joseph, and today I have built Hogak.
You can also tell he's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player because he called it Hogak.
What do you all call it?
Hogak.
Very famously.
Summer of the Gak.
DEI is alive and well at Tolarian Community College. We're giving job opportunities to Yu-Gi-Oh! Players.
I get transfer credits for this, don't worry.
I was very bored during COVID lockdown.
It's
go.
terrifying
Let's go.
when Prof is doing well.
Put him up.
Avison, Angel of Hope. Oh, my queen.
We literally have assigned a member of staff to making sure Tappy doesn't screw up her own commander's life tracking.
Yes, correct. It's like when you
Yeah,
train
yeah.
dogs.
Appreciate that half the table is clicker trained with White Claw.